Today in the Acts of the Apostles, we find ourselves with Paul and Barnabas and their companions at Antioch in Pisidia, which is different than the Antioch which is in Syria, which we had heard about earlier last week and even into this week. So they're on a missionary journey, and the Holy Spirit is leading them to these different places where they're going. And they've reached Antioch in Pisidia and go to the Jewish synagogue on the Sabbath. And the synagogue official invites Paul to come forward and say a word of exhortation to the people. And I think that it's a beautiful way in which Paul knows how to evangelize effectively, what we hear. What he does is he outlines the old covenant for the people. So these are people who would have understood the scriptures, who would have understood well the story of salvation up to this point. So he talks to them about how God chose their ancestors and that he led them out of Egypt, that he freed them from slavery, and then that he raised up for them judges, and then after that kings, and Saul, who was a king but wasn't a very good king, and then there was David, a king after God's own heart. And from David's line comes the Messiah, who is Jesus. So what Paul does is he connects their kind of understanding of the covenant and their deep hopes for a Messiah, then connects all the dots up to Jesus. He says from David's line came Jesus then, and from him, what do you say? He's heralded by John the Baptist and all of these amazing things about him, and he continues on this after today's reading as well. I think it's a great lesson for us who are would-be evangelizers on how we are to evangelize, or a good method to evangelize. What Paul does here is he connects to the knowledge and faith of those present already in the synagogue, to what they would know already about the story of salvation, and then he brings them to Jesus from that. Now, in our day and age, people might not know all of the scriptures of the Old Testament. It might, if we have the time, it might be something that we could do to lead them through the Old Covenant and the promises that God has been faithful to throughout all of covenant history. But if we're being honest, I don't know that all of us could probably do that either. What we can do is connect to what are the desires of people's hearts now, and how does Jesus fulfill those? We want to be happy. We want to be successful. We want to know that there is meaning to our lives. Jesus brings all of these things, and in a way that no one else ever could. It's in Jesus we find the meaning of true self-giving love. It's in Jesus and in a relationship with him and his church that we find our true belonging in this world, our true family in God. And the greatest evangelistic tool probably is our own witness, the witness of a life of charity and joy because we know Jesus. So just like Paul and Barnabas and their companions go about preaching the good news, we are called to do the same thing and use the tools that we have. Use those things that we have not as simply as tools, but as ways to share the love of Jesus with others. Just knowing Jesus' love should lead us to share it with others. Let's ask the Lord for a greater zeal for doing that, and that he might give us the tools and the words to preach an effective word to someone else, that they might truly know Jesus' love and come to faith in him.